Hey guys, once again, thank you for coming and spending another night with us at the Zach and Max show. Tonight's guest is Todd Heightshoe. He is a gentleman, scholar, artiste, has hails from Ohio, has served in our armed forces, retired to the great state of Texas, and then decided, oh no, not enough for me. I'm going back into the workforce. So now is gallivanting around the United States for PepsiCo Frito-Lay. In his spare time, he loves to do fantastic pieces of art, and that is why we have him on our show tonight. Todd, how you doing, man?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Well, we appreciate you being on. So how's your night been? You doing okay today?
How's my night been? Well, a long week, long day, and actually all day today. I was thinking about, well, I got the interview tonight and something to look forward to.
Oh,
And actually, I'm sitting here doing our craft while I was waiting on you all, and now I'm sitting here looking at it and then looking at you all. So
Yeah, I couldn't get the mic to work. We were late.
sorry, that's 100% our fault. But Todd, so speaking of our craft, the things that you love, how did you yourself get into gaming?
oh boy, so I originally started like gaming when I was 13 years old. So I'm 48 now, so that tells you that, old dog, been doing this for a minute. In Ohio, in Newark, which is a suburb of Columbus, Ohio, there was not a lot of at that time geek outlet. So there was a couple of guys, Greg and Rick, that they partnered and they actually opened up a comic book and a game store. But prior to that, I would always hop on my bicycle and ride to like the convenience stores or whatever and buy my comic books. And Star Trek TOS was always coming on and so forth. So laying on the floor watching TV, watching Star Trek and so forth, just geeking out there. And then of course all the shows that were popular during that time: The Incredible Hulk, Wonder Woman, the old school Captain America. Yes, with the clear plastic shield.
Oh, it was so bad. I wanted to like it so much.
Yes, absolutely. Well, of course, back then, that was the only time that our heroes, our imagination actually ever came to life.
Mm-hmm.
So, my friends and I, we would always, play and so forth. And then my mother, she was a school teacher, and she was always fostering my imagination, my creativity. I was always doing stuff with my GI Joes and my Sergeant Rocks, making cardboard buildings and fortresses, and using string to make zip lines down the stairs and different things along those lines. So when I was 4 years old, she took me to see this movie that took place in space. It was about the underdogs, and it was called Star Wars: New Hope. And sitting there in the movie theater, I was just godsmacked, and that's actually what really pulled me into the world of geekdom, the world of sci-fi, and realized that this was in my DNA. So running around with my friends when I was little, I was playing Star Wars, I was doing the different stuff in the backyards, going down to the creeks and so forth. When the guys opened up the comic book and game store, my buddy and I, Mark, we headed down there on our bicycles, rode down, walked in, introduced ourselves because we had never seen anything like it. And one of the first games that we were introduced to was BattleTech. And at that time, Walden Books, who was absorbed by Barnes and Noble, was really the only place previously to get any type of gaming materials, whether it be Dungeons and Dragons, whether it be BattleTech by FASA back then, or any other game materials. But now there was this venue, almost exactly like yours, that was dedicated to geekdom. And so one-stop shop, buy our comic books, talk, and more importantly, talk about the comic books, talk about what was going on with the characters, talk about the morphology, talk about the message that the writers and the artists were trying to send and convey in the comic books. Because art duplicates life, and I'm actually a firm believer that life actually duplicates art in some instances. And then, you know, as the community started growing around these two guys that opened up this comic book and game store, and gaming really took off, in 1985, this little game came to the store, had these god awful yellow looking miniatures, dudes in heavy armor, had these just weird extravagant rules. It was called Warhammer Rogue Trader. Uh, and then it was like, you know, then it was hooked. My DNA was modified by the Emperor himself. uh, and it just went from there, and the community exploded with BattleTech, Warhammer. Of course, you know, we played Dungeons and Dragons in the store, and we could be free. We could let our imaginations go without judgment. We were surrounded by like-minded people that felt the same, people that look the same, because, you know, we like to wear our t-shirts that had our heroes and different things on them. And it was about community. It was about belonging. And from there, actually was a part of that community. I was 13. So I was part of that community for another 5 years. And of course, you know, when you turn 16, 17 years old, those hormones start flowing, and comic books and miniatures turn into, you know, your head starts turn into these young ladies, or, you know, young men, depending on whatever, you know, and you get distracted. And before too long, yeah, I was a senior in high school, and my girlfriend and I were pregnant, and we were planning on getting married, and I needed to take care of my family. And so, you know, being 18, or actually at that point, 17 years old, knowing everything and having an absolute plan for my life and knowing what I was going to do, you know, the military really was about the only solution at that point, because I came from a lower middle class family. So, like I said, my mother, school teachers, you know, overworked, underpaid, underappreciated. My father, blue collar. So there was no money for college. So take care of my family, get money for college, you know, see what happens. And then from there, 23 years later, well, actually it was about 12 years later, because I have a break in service where I got out and finished my 4-year college degree. But, you know, 23 years in the Army really taught me a lot. And that actually gave me the opportunity to travel and divest and diversify myself into different communities and learn about different communities. And some of the most desolate times were going to areas that had no community whatsoever. And that's where you have to get very creative with what you want to do. You know, whether you want to, you know, either try to build a community yourself, go out of the way to find a community, or just kind of resign yourself to, okay, you know, depending on where you are at the stage of your life, that, okay, this is temporary. I'm going to focus on myself. I'm going to develop. I'm going to grow. I'm going to do what I need to do for me. And then when the opportunity presents itself again, you know, find that community. Because for me, gaming is just not, it's just not rolling dice. Like, you know, whenever I run a role-playing game, one of my favorite systems was Rifts on the Palladium. You know, it's the Palladium multiverse. And I always used to tell people, when you come to play, it is role playing, capital ROLE, not ROLL. And, you know, the dice are a mechanism in the game. It is not the game. And that's actually one of the challenges I've had with the Warhammer community, because I keep getting in and out of it so often, is that depending on the community, and unfortunately, where I live currently in Central Texas, the community is incredibly competitive. And a lot of times they refer to it as Smash Hammer or Dice Hammer. And when new players come in, they talk about clubbing baby seals. And it really, really bothers me, because for me, it is about the craft. It is about the hobby. It is about the expression of your imagination, whether it be an aspect of a book you've read, of a TV show you've seen. You know, just like right now with Disney Channel's on The Mandalorian, you know, it has really rekindled and reawakened and reintroduced so many people to the Star Wars universe. And it has shown a different side of Star Wars. It is on that emotional side, that a side of connection, that side of multiple ethnicities, diverse cultures, whatever the case may be, and the fact that with Grogu and Mando, being that father-son relationship, they're two completely different species. Mm-hmm. But yet you can tell Mando, Sharon, he loves Grogu with all his heart and soul. And so working on models, modeling, crafting, modifying, I never, ever just pull out a model and pull it and make it stock. It's always got to be customized, because for me, for the craft, for the hobby, it is capturing a moment in the adventure and a moment in the model's action. And actually, Dallas Kemp, who is one of the creators of Marvel Crisis Protocol, one of the mechanics in the game is that even though it is played with miniatures and you're playing with terrain and so forth, and is a three-dimensional game, the game is designed to be played two-dimensional. And a lot of Warhammer players or War Machine or whatever that are crosswalking over to Marvel Crisis Protocol are really having a very difficult time with playing a three-dimensional game in a two-dimensional setting. And as Dallas has said repeatedly, when you look at the model, when you look at the dynamic pose of the model, the setting, where they are, that represents a myriad of seconds taking place in gameplay. So whether it be, Ultron is up here and Captain America is down here, and range-wise, he can throw his shield. But reality-wise, if you look at a true line of sight, he couldn't do it. But as Dallas has said repeatedly, just imagine Captain America doing a flip up in the air, winging his shield, it bouncing back and catching it and landing. That is the activity that is taking place. So when and that's something I've been doing with my models, is that a lot of hobbyists like to use clear bases, example, because now we're getting fat mats and all the different, textured and neoprene type game mats and so forth that have absolutely beautiful portraited and printed terrain underneath. Just roll it out and play. So you got the acrylic base and you can see through. But for me, the base represents where that model is in the adventure, whether it be desert, whether it be snow, whether it be craggy cropping, whether it be jungle, whatever the case may be. So all the bases are themed and everything looks uniform, because that is where the army, the miniature, the character, whatever, is at in the setting at its time. And for me, it truly has been a journey from 13 years old, 35 years ago, and I think about it, and I'm like, good Lord, one day I'm going to lose my hair because of this hobby. Now because of the changing times, cost, different things along those lines. And that I think of my 35-year journey and where I was to where I am now. And I am very blessed in the fact that my son, who is going to be 30 this year, so again, that tells you where I was at my time and where my mind was back when I was a teenager. He has come along this journey with me, whether it be through either me taking him with me and exposing him to it, but we game together, we talk, we geek out, we share ideas, and I have done my best to bring him along with the craft, with the hobby, because as any parent knows, any child is always trying to rush to the finish line. So whenever I would, dote on him and give him a box of miniatures or whatever, he'd always rush to get it done, to get it painted, to, get it on the table. But he never thought of the journey of the model of the craft, as to where his imagination was trying to take that model. Mm-hmm. Always about rolling the dice and playing the game. It wasn't the investing a part of yourself into the hobby to make it worthwhile. So when you're spending those hours and hours and hours sitting in front of your crafting desk or your crafting table, and you're bringing a model to life, and then you go to a game and you put it on the board, and often so happens, the Warhammer players are going to know, especially Imperial Guard, you put them out on the table, you have a fully painted unit, and first turn that unit gets completely nerfed.
Deleted. Yeah.
That happens to me every game.
And that unit hasn't even lasted 5 minutes.
You literally be playing D&D and it still happens somehow.
Yep.
You didn't have a unit.
So you're sitting there and you're thinking, oh my God, I spent 4 or 5 hours, maybe even more than that, depending on Imperial Guard, because you can have 20, 30 men units, or person units, because not actually have female guardsmen. You're sitting there thinking, oh my God, I spent all that time and so forth. But again, you can look back and say, for that 5 minutes, it looked pretty damn good being on the table. And so forth. So
I had a similar one. My first night I ever got, my chaos night. Sorry, my first night I ever got. I put on the table, and he wasn't done yet. It was a work in progress still. And we're playing for first turn. I'm going against a Tau player.
Oh no.
Pretty notorious Tau player.
Oh no.
You know who you are if you're watching this.
Shoot.
Alpha struck. Commander flew across the turn. The across table first turn, lit him up, destroyed the
whole
chaos night in one shooting phase. I'm just like, it was bad. But hey, I mean, like you said, it was cool to have him on the board.
Yeah.
Just to set him up and be like, hey, look what I got. Tau player said not anymore, but
Yeah.
Well, something that Todd brought up.
But a general rule of thumb is that painted models fight better.
He wasn't finished.
Something that Todd brought up that I know is actually very personal to you is
he brought up
gaming and family.
He brought up the Star Wars thing right away, going to see it with his mom. My grandpa, he took me to all 3 of the prequels, and that's why I love those, even though everyone hates on them.
Well,
so I already got that now. What were you saying?
No, I'm just saying I know that's a very big thing for you. It's gaming with family, because that is something that's very core to yourself. Do you guys have any kind of I guess this is kind of part of the interview. I'm interviewing you now. So I guess I don't come from a very large family. So with that aspect of gaming where you guys are gaming with your family members. In my experience with my limited amount of family, they are just the perfect people to push the right buttons to just throw me out the window and into oncoming traffic, because they just know the right way to do it. How do you guys navigate having a positive experience with gaming with your family?
I mean, for me, it's just being honest and just coming out the gate. I game with a group who consists of my sister, her husband, and a 7-year-old. Who the 7-year-old doesn't like to lose.
That is what it is. Those are the rules for the 7-year-old.
She makes the rules.
Yeah.
It's okay. And it's just with that expectation, we're just there having fun. We're spending time together. The games aren't going to be super competitive, anything like that. We play anything from villainous, but also just going, I don't want to say down because that's rude, but something simplistic like Uno. It's just for me, it's just you really got to know your crowd, because I also go to Amanda's family's place and they play like more games, social deduction games, and I'm terrible at it. They whoop up on me and they're like, yep, you're bad. I'm like, you know what? The whole time it's about knowing the audience when to put the gas down for me, because I find that just in past experience with people, the biggest reason why someone won't have fun is if they don't feel either A, included, or B, like they knew what was going on. If you kind of feel I've had those situations where if I feel confused the whole time, even with family, it's kind of well, this kind of sucked. I want to do something else. If I didn't feel like something included me, even though I was at the table, that always kind of sucks.
And then with you, Todd, you said that you brought your son along, and when it wasn't just about hey, I got this really cool shiny box of new toys for you, and it's not just about playing the game and rolling the dice. What did you find was the most treasured moment that gaming has brought for you two together as a family?
I can honestly say that his growth, where he is right now, especially in the community, again in Central Texas, he has really become a mentor for new gamers. And since he is 29, 30 years old, he can definitely connect with them, much better than what I can, because of course when I start talking to them, they're always calling me sir and different things, and I'm like, I'm not sir, I'm just Todd, I'm geek just like you. Let's just chill. But one of the things that I appreciate with where he and the journey that he has taken is that he has left his ego at the door. It is about socializing, about talking, about when you're sitting there and yes, you're playing a game, but you could be talking about Wonder Woman 1984 that's coming out. Hey, are you going to go see it? Who else is going to go see it? Somebody over here. Yeah, I'm gonna go see it. You guys interested in going together? It's about the socializing part of it. And then with him, growing up in the game, he did grow competitive, and he does want to be a competitive gamer. But I always tell him, I say, okay, just make sure that when you are playing with the person or whoever you're playing with, gauge your opponent, ask them, how long have they been playing, whether it's going to be a friendly game or a competitive game. What is their skill level? Yes, they've been playing for a short period of time, but have they dove headfirst into it and understand the rules and so forth? What is their learning curve? So
know when to push the gas, right? Yeah.
What's that?
Just like a phrase I use, like know when to push the gas, like know when to go all in.
Exactly. So therefore, because it's about the fun, it's about the camaraderie. If you truly, and I tell people this all the time, and it honestly, people look at me kind of funny, but if you feel like that you have to play a game and become an alpha at a game, I feel like that there are aspects of your life that you need to take a step back and reassess, because you are deflecting the real issue into the game and then inflicting yourself upon other people who are trying to have a good time, trying to socialize or whatever. If you need to play a game and beat somebody down to feel better about yourself, then try self-development, self-growth before, again, you do start inflicting yourself upon somebody, because that can ruin a community. It can toxify a community, make a community very toxic. And I've seen it. I've lived through it. And I have gotten out of gaming because of where I was at and the toxicity of that community, and the fact that for them, the games were some supplement in their life that they just felt that they had to have because they just weren't getting that satisfaction somewhere else. And so
no, that can definitely poison the well,
yes,
with the community. I have to say that is one of the things that I'm very proud of. Our shout out to our Rogue Trader tournament group that plays here. They've been doing the Rogue Tournament Series here, Rogue Trader Tournament Series, through this store for the past 6 years, 7 years, 6 years. Yeah, but
I think it started in 2016.
So about 6 years. But the key core tenet of that was the hobby. Is more about crafting a beautiful army, crafting the story behind that army, socializing with other like-minded people.
Also crafting the story behind your list, not just
or about your list. It wasn't always just gas in the list.
It was the first tournament I ever played, and it's probably the reason I continued playing, because I lost every game.
But you know what?
But I had a really good time. And I still talk.
And that was the thing that the original guys that first put that together for us, they hammered through. They're like, look, you can go and just destroy people if you want to, and if that's the type of game you want to play, that's cool, that's fun to whoever thinks that is fun, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as both parties know that.
Let your teammate know you're going, let your opponent know you're going in with ITC list.
But if you want a longer lasting enjoyable experience, where you can talk shop about painting, you can talk shop about modeling, you can talk shop about the lore. That's one of their favorite things. Those guys really embody that, and we were very lucky to have them with us for so long.
They're still here?
No, they're definitely still here. Just
they're watching
COVID.
They're watching on the giant screen in Brandon's
man cave. But no, it was one of the greatest joys of of the experience of the stores to be able to have had those guys bring that mindset into the store, because it really did shape the way that our community has run for almost 10 years now.
Yeah.
Actually, and that was one of the things that I really I felt the first time I walked into your shop, was just the welcoming feeling and so forth, and just how open and communicative everybody was and so forth. And there wasn't this, hey, who's a stranger, who's this new guy, let's feel him out or whatever. It was just immediate, communication, talking about life. Zach, you were talking about your back, and I talked to you about my back.
You really
Stretches
helped build
and different things along those lines, because I mean, we all experience life separately. We all view life through our own lens. And with what you were talking about with the fact that your Warhammer community is real big on the lore, on the meta, years ago, when I was on recruiting duty for the Army, it was when Gaunt's Ghosts and Warhammer 40K was really big.
Yeah.
Absolutely fell in love with Imperial Guard Gaunt's Ghost. But if you play pure Gaunt's Ghost, you're never going to win.
You get rolled.
Different things. But I absolutely love the meta. I love the story. I love the lore and different things along those lines. And that was actually one of the things that I fell in love with was Steamforge's Guild Ball. When it came out, every model was a character. Every model had its own lore, had its own meta. Each team, each faction, different things along those lines. And it goes back to what I was talking about, just how important a community is in also growing and fostering that community. And the fact that Steamforge killed Guild Ball because the community became overly competitive and new players. And to quote the guys from Steamforge, is that a game store, a friendly local game store, would host or demo games of Guild Ball. New players would come in. Of course, they would win their first game and get very interested, invest in a game or whatever, and then spend the next 99 games trying to figure out why they can't win anymore, because the community was just, again, overly competitive, and the community was not welcoming to the varying experience levels.
Mm-hmm.
And where I am in my life, and I'm pretty sure where you are right now, Zach, where you are, we are mentors to the next generation of gamers, of hobbyists, of craftsmen. And if we do not remember that and take that time to invest in ourselves, which is in turn investing in our community and investing in growing that community, it's going to die on the vine. And that's that you and your community have absolutely, I'm absolutely in love with your store, in love with your community. In fact, when my time here in Covington and New Orleans ends, I know my heart is going to be breaking, because I could see myself being a very active part of your community. And I would love to meet everybody in the community and trade secrets, but trade techniques and different things along those lines for what we do. Because there is no right one way of doing things. There's only variations of a theme.
Right.
And
Sorry.
I mean, and I have a specific style of the way I paint. I know my son does, and I know your guys there do. And there's a lot of your guys, the stuff that I've seen, from folks in your shop that put a lot of my stuff to shame. But it's different.
Mm-hmm.
It's not better, it's not worse, it's just different. And as long as when we view what we do through our lens, and we are happy as hobbyists and craftsmen and can walk away with a point of pride for what we've accomplished with bringing our models to life, then that fulfills a part in our soul and in our heart, and knows that this is an art form, and that when you are working on your models and you're painting your models and you're doing whatever, you're expressing a part of yourself that cannot be put into words, but can be visualized through that craft.
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of mentoring, we would like to show off just a few of your models, which will be placed here or possibly further that way. Please put them over there.
No,
somewhere.
don't.
Anyway, so a couple of the models that I would like to speak about. The first one would be this particular Spider Gwen that you had for MCP. You have this beautiful webbing that you put around her, which is not typical of the original piece. Can you explain to our viewers a little bit about what you did there?
Yes, absolutely. So, and again, going back to, Dallas Kemp, I love the fact that, he's a co-creator of the game, very vocal on the pages and so forth. And he explains the morphology of the creation of the models, the sculpting, what they were thinking and so forth. So one of the primary statements in the Marvel Crisis Protocol community, and I'm sure a lot of the individuals that are watching this can attest to it, is the ubiquitous stone or piece of debris or something that the guy's foot up on top of, is standing on top of, is jumping off top of, whatever. It's that very, dynamic pose. Because one of the things that Atomic Mass Games does not use is a lot of, acrylic flight stands. I'll hold this up for the Mandalorians I'm working on and so forth. So for individuals who may be soaring through the air or jumping or leaping or whatever, they're always at either the beginning or the end of the leap. So originally, Ghost Spider Gwen, Gwen Stacy, she's almost doing like a ballet pirouette type pose, and her ballet slipper, her toe is right on top of a stone. So what I did was I shaved it off, and I took bass wire on the guitar string that, by the way, tipped a bunch of 40K players or whatever, bass wire guitar string. You buy it in the varying thicknesses and so forth. It actually looks like tubing and piping and so forth. It's a great modeling tool. And you can get it for free because you dumpster dive at the music store, and they normally have like wads of it. And you walk in, you say, "Hey, do you have any broken string that I can have?" And they'll look at you like you're crazy. But you'll walk out with probably about $100 worth of guitar string that you got for free because it's all broken. They can't use it, but we can. So anyway, so I took it and I wrapped it around a dowel, because every single photo that I'd ever really seen of Spider-Gwen, other than her doing selfies or whatever the case may be, she's always airborne, kind of being surrounded by webbing. So I took it and I wound it, and I took thread and then I wound it around it to give it the Todd McFarlane gooey web.
Spider line.
And then these are the droppers that I use, Hobby Lobby. Put the Bob Smith super thin, or you guys probably order them. The Bob Smith super thin, let it run down it, and it gives it that gooey look.
Right.
Because then you use the accelerator on it, and it causes it to glob up. And the way she's posed with her hands is that she's actually like on the webbing, so she's descending down through this coil of webbing, and the webbing is touching the ground, which I built up like a little pile of debris and garbage and so forth, because it's New York City. And then I also printed off a small newspaper and kind of wadded it up, about the spider foes or whatever the case may be. I always try to theme my bases as, whether it, J.J. Jameson is bad mouthing all this, the spiders and so forth. But so therefore, she's actually suspended in midair in the middle of this webbing, because the guitar string, the bass wire, is quite rigid, and it has a nice little spring to it and so forth. So it's
just gorgeous. Dynamic. It's a gorgeous piece. And then just one more real quick is this beautiful Ant-Man that you have on this beautiful quarter here. And can you give us a little bit of information on why you chose that particular quarter?
Yes. So the Ant-Man for the Marvel Crisis Protocol is Scott Lang. Because of course, MCP is trying to, and Atomic Mass is trying to capitalize on our, current trend of, Marvel movies and adventure movies and so forth. So Scott Lang was originally created in 1979. So the Micronized, the small Ant-Man version, the reduced version for the game, he's in a very dynamic running pose. And again, the original pose was he was running up a piece of rubble. So I was like, but it didn't give any depth. It didn't give any, any scope. or scale as to exactly how big he was. So I started playing around and looking and so forth, and I was looking at some coins, and it's like, okay, that would do for scale. So I looked at a quarter. I was like, oh, that's perfect. So I started thinking, quarters have dates. I looked up when the Scott line was he created or invented for Marvel. Found out 1979. Started looking around. Was driving by a coin store one day, swung in, talked to the owner, and I said, hey, I'm working on a project. Kind of weird. I need a 1979 quarter. I don't care what condition it's in. Of course, he looked at me. He was like, yeah, I got a bunch of them. Here you go. And he gave me, and I was like, well, how much do I owe you? He's like, that's just stuff I always get, take it, do whatever you're going to do. Just let me see what you're going to do with it, whatever. Da, da. So I took the quarter, I put it with the date facing out with Scott running up it at the incline that matched. So now the quarter with the date 1979 shows the inception of Scott Lang as Ant-Man. So it gives the perception of scale and the fact that he is roughly about the size of a quarter. And I have a position angled where it also covers the base. So the base now becomes immaterial for the scale because the quarter is providing that scale. Mm-hmm. And so now it just looks like a piece of concrete. Plus I took a gum wrapper, actually I've got a gum wrapper that I'm gonna stick coming out the side of the quarter. And of course it's the real size, gum wrapper. So that too will add to the the scale of the model.
Oh, that's fantastic, man. I love those little stories that he's able to tell with his basing, and I think that is a part of modeling that you don't see a whole lot of, because people are so concentrated on, look at this amazing paint job that I did on the model itself. Which, don't get me wrong, they're beautiful. Like some of those Golden Demons, amazing. But I think that
just remember, guys, some of the Golden Demons are amazing. Just some.
Yeah, just some. Just saying. Well, Todd, thank you so much. I'm so happy that you're able to be part of this this little interview with us. And we're talking about the modeling aspect of hobby gaming, and you gave us a kind of a soul caressing mentorship on the philosophy of gaming, which I think is fantastic. But we want to say thank you so much for being a part of our community, because you are truly a part of our community. And we hope that when your time does end here, you won't be a stranger and you still come by and visit when you can.
Absolutely. And a challenge that I'm going to ask of your community that's going to stay local, and then by extension of myself and so forth, when the world opens back up and so forth, and we have Adapticon and Gen Con and so forth, that would be absolutely great to see everybody there.
Oh yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna see if Zach's gonna pay for everybody's tickets to go.
Yeah, that's fine.
You heard it here, people. Zach's paying for all the tickets. We're all going.
Yep, we're going to the Gen Con that I'm gonna host.
No, that's always like in your backyard.
It's in my bathroom this time.
No, what's the worst place?
Now that sounds kind of crappy.
Yeah. You have no idea.
But you see, now Todd's throwing in the dad
There we
jokes.
go.
Damn it.
So before we go, I need everyone to like, comment, and subscribe. Go for Games. I also need everyone, when we come back, tell Mac to wear a work shirt. Please.
This is true. This is true. At least it wasn't.
Do your laundry. Do your laundry.
I know. It wasn't Baby Yoda this time. At least it's got that. We got that.
Guys, he changed his jacket. It's a miracle. Christmas miracle.